Thank you, Sophie. It actually goes a little bit beyond finance manager, actually. I actually started as a bookkeeper, so even more junior than that. And I don't have a degree. So anybody who actually doesn't have a degree and wants to become a CEO, it's actually plausible. So good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be back after 4 years. I'm Karl, as Sophie said, the CEO of Global Lingo, a multi-language vendor based across 6 different countries and employing around 100 people. Disclaimer, stuff we're talking about today is all about technology. I'm not a technologist. So what I want to get across today is it's possible to do things with the API, like Dan said, and not have a technology background. So never fear about diving in and playing and figuring out what we can do. I recently went through an exercise with my team, which was about the 6 geniuses that we all possess. And my genius is wonder, or one of them is wonder. And it's the concept of being curious, the concept of thinking things can be better than they are today. And this is what led us to kind of join Plunet in the first place, and it's kind of what led us to go straight into the Salesforce integration. So what I want to start off by saying is, one second, sorry about this. Oops. So the principles of today's presentation, even though it's focused on sales, it can be utilized across any kind of API. I've started with sales because it's just how we utilized it, but this can actually apply to everything outside of sales as well. Sales professionals in our industry can often spend time managing a whole host of different things. Things such as data administration, prospecting, filling in client maybe complaint reports, or working with clients on their language strategies. And all of this can take up time. But we've got to see sales as an investment, and therefore we're looking for an ROI whenever we're actually investing in our sales professionals. So for this reason, when we partnered with Plunet, the first thing we did was figure out if this system can actually integrate with Salesforce, and it did. So we went with Plunet, and over the years, what we've seen is the cost of business development personnel has been rising exponentially. As you can see, since 2017 to 2022, we've seen sales personnel increase in cost by up to 60% in China. That's really excessive, and also we've got to then figure out, well, how do we counterbalance this? How do we try to make more money out of it? So when we're strategizing ROI on our business development team, that's when we start thinking about the ways to automate a process. So one aspect I'll be discussing today is to consider how we can get a better ROI by looking at sales administration automation, by integrating Plunet with any customer relationship management tool you might have in play. Global Lingo uses Salesforce, but working with the API, you can actually utilize HubSpot or Microsoft Dynamics. It's rather flexible. So time equals money. Therefore, if you want to ensure that money is going to be generated on a greater ROI level, we've got to figure out how we can do that. So Global Lingo's objectives when we were looking at sales automation were to reduce data duplication effort, improve data integrity, enhance information transparency across regions and departments, and reduce the cost of duplicate licensing fees. There's one common solution to all of these problems that need to be solved, and that one solution is real-time system communications. You possibly already have in place a CRM, or maybe you're looking to put a CRM in place like Global Lingo, which is Salesforce. Either way, once you utilize a CRM, which is outside of the Plunet infrastructure, you're now using data across 2 different systems. So that first problem we're going to come across is data duplication. We all know nobody likes to waste time, nobody likes to see time being wasted, and there's nothing worse than actually seeing one data set over here and feeling like we've got to all copy and paste it and put into this data set over there. So data duplication is our first problem we have got to overcome, and real-time communication is key to that. And as with data duplication, data integrity is the next problem we've got to solve. When you've got 2 sets of data that we're filling in, we've got the possibility that we're filling in one set of data over here in one particular way, and one set of data differently on this side. So common examples within CRM systems is the client name. So we start with client name over here and client name over there. Maybe the client name's changed halfway through the year, and now I've got to go and change it over here, but now we're outdated. Not only that, we've got opportunity and project values. We've also got a whole host of different contacts within that client. So data integrity, unless it's been addressed early on, can become a real headache as your database expands and the amount of data we're recording is getting larger. So again, to overcome this problem, I go back to that real-time system communication solution. The third problem, information transparency, comes about from having more team members across different areas of the world, across different teams. As organizations grow, data becomes vaster, and therefore teams become larger, and communication becomes more difficult. It's not like we're sat in one room and we can communicate with each other. So information transparency can be overcome if two people are working in two different systems by utilizing the API and making sure that real-time connection is constantly working to make sure nobody's on a different page. It's really important teams across different organizations, across different countries, are working towards the same goals with the same information. And finally, one of the bigger aspects, in my opinion, as an accountant to overcome is duplicate licensing fees. SaaS platforms, as you know, usually charge on a per seat or per license basis. And this is a problem if your teams are scaling at large. So if you're having to have licenses in Plunet and licenses in Salesforce, and essentially it's got the same set of data in, then you're paying twice for the same piece of information. So it's really important that when we are integrating systems, that we are communicating in real time and working out how we can reduce the cost of licenses. And again, the only way you can do it is by real-time communication between the two systems. If you don't, then you're going to need two sets of licenses. And I'm sure you all experience has anybody got a seat in Plunet today? Has anybody got a seat in Plunet today? Problem that goes on across all the different LSPs. So we've got the objectives. Those objectives we need to overcome, and we had to find out then where do we start. So to kick off our sales administration automation project, we started by identifying all the different opportunities for sales automation and analyzed how those opportunities could be overcome. Whether that be by developing our own internal connectivity using the Plunet API, or by using the built-in functionality for automation, we were always looking at ways to assess the processes that we utilize. So this process involves working with all stakeholders across the business, whether that's technology teams, project management teams, and sales teams, to make sure there's buy-in. Because that's actually the next part of buying in automation as a concept, is you need to galvanize your stakeholders and make sure everyone's on the same page. Otherwise, it's not going to work, and it's probably going to fail. So once we identified the areas of potential automation, we then had to consider automation prioritization. If we go back to the slide previous, we're looking at those different 4 objectives, and then we're looking at which particular automation opportunity is going to generate the most for us. So is it about saving the licensing costs? Is it about removing data duplication? Which one has the biggest ROI for the business? Today, I'm going to be focused on the account contact. I don't know why it keeps moving, because I'm not clicking it, Sophie, but it's doing it itself. So today I'll be focused on the account contact and opportunity management functionality in Salesforce and looking at how we've automated those two pieces together. We're going to be looking at how we have tackled that and the problems we overcame. But I'd also say, like, if you do have sales functions, don't just stop there, because you've got things like outreach opportunity and you've got activity logging, which are all processes that essentially you're paying somebody to just record data, and there's tools out there to make that possible. So as you saw on the screen just now, if I just go back to that, what we automated so far, this here is what our technology stack for sales looks like. So at Global Lingo, our sales process begins at outreach, as most sales opportunities do. And it's the process of identifying prospective clients, touching base via events, LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, calling, anything to qualify the prospect as a potential opportunity. And then once this has been completed, the account is getting created in Salesforce. We've actually got an external connector between Outreach and Salesforce, which automates that tool as well. So what Outreach does, if anybody doesn't know, essentially it kind of gives you steps you can follow, such as touch base on LinkedIn. So you might get that thing, oh, John's reviewed my profile. And then it says, oh, John's connected with it. A lot of that's automated. People don't realize it, but a lot of it is just an automated connection. And then the Outreach program will say, right, okay, now send an email. And it's just warming the client up. Eventually, hopefully, they're on board, and that becomes an account and a contact within Salesforce. Once that account and contact goes into Salesforce, there'll be ongoing discussions about potential opportunities. The opportunity information is then logged within Salesforce as well. So our sales team have not even yet seen Plunet or interacted with Plunet at all. We're currently living within the sales environment. So throughout these different stages, we are seeing various opportunities for automation. We're seeing account and contact creation. We're seeing opportunity management. We're seeing outreach automation. And all of this goes towards generating that increased ROI that we're looking for. So this is Global Lingo's tech stack. On top of Outreach, we've also got LinkedIn Sales Navigator plugged into that as well. So the next slide goes really into the detail of how we've plugged the systems together and how we have automated account management, contact management, and opportunity management. So I'm not sure if you see the screen so well, but on the left-hand side here is where we've got our Salesforce platform, and on the right-hand side, we've got the Plunet section of the account. And this is what an account looks like in Salesforce, and this is what I think they call it customer section of Plunet looks like. So you've got the customer profile and communication section at the top, and you've got the address information below. And what we utilized first to get started was ensuring that when a salesperson's entered an entry into Salesforce and they've recorded the account name, they've recorded the account source, they've plugged in the telephone number, the industry, the sales category, we've got an address. You can see those buttons, hopefully, at the top there, which says Send to Plunet and Get from Plunet. They're essentially triggers. So the salesperson's working in this space, they're identifying opportunities, and then they're saying, right, okay, I've got a live opportunity I want to quote. So the salesperson can send the Plunet account, which travels across and populates all your fields where it needs to be on here. So now we've got a populated account name. The address is actually desegmented out. It was a complete block field in Salesforce, and we've got it everywhere it needs to be. So from a billing and project management perspective, I know my account name, contact name, I've got the address, contact details of the individual. And that's all just by a single click of a button. A salesperson hasn't even touched into Plunet just yet. Once that's happened, and actually our team have made a recent improvement to this, the salesperson can then create a bunch of different contacts. These could be various buyers within the account. And as they're created, we have the same two buttons at the top, Send to and Get from, and that allows the pushing and pulling between the two platforms. So we've got Salesforce sending across the contact person information, and as you can see at the top right, we've got name, Chaz Kim, is segmented it out and put it into first and last name accordingly. We've got the telephone number come across, and we've got the email come across. So at this point in time, at least the project management team know who we're working with. After that, we now have the opportunity, and this is basically where it gets a bit juicier. So on the right-hand side this time, we've got the Salesforce account. And on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, that's your request functionality in Plunet. I don't know how many people use the request functionality within Plunet, maybe those who've deployed the customer portal, but the request functionality is used a lot at Global Lingo. That's where we're starting from. So not often does it start from an order or a quote. We're going through the request functionality first. So that opportunity, which has been scoped out by the sales rep, has got an opportunity name. We've got the attached contact that I sent across earlier, the attached account. We've got source languages, target languages, deadline of the project. We've got what the project is. It's a translation project. And not only that, this doesn't show it, but we can upload the source content here as well. So we can make sure everything is in Salesforce that needs to be quoted on. It's just cut off at the top. We've got another Send to Plunet button. The sales rep can hit Send to Plunet, and again, without logging into Plunet, send that quote request through to Plunet. So now our project management team receive the notification that we've got something ready to quote, and they can go extract the source content, push that through to XTM. XTM is going to analyze it, and then we're going to pull through a quote value, and essentially once that's been pulled back into Plunet and the quote's ready to be distributed, the actual opportunity value then gets dragged back into Salesforce as well. So we're actually building out that salesperson's pipeline and revenue pipeline accurately. Because if we go back to that data integrity issue, the sales reps probably just estimated the amount. They've probably put it's worth £50,000. But then we've got the reps, and then we've got potentially discount applied to that as well. And knowing sales reps, they don't tend to go back and update it. It's long gone. They moved on to the next opportunity. So by pulling it back, it means that we've now got an accurate pipeline that the sales manager can work from, the CEO can work from, the sales team know what they're working with, and it's aligned with what project management are selling. The quote file itself, the PDF file, is going to come out, and it's going to be stuck into the files within Salesforce. So now the salesperson can actually take that file and share it with the client and leave it for decision. And it doesn't stop there for the process. So the client's then going to receive their quotation, and they're going to assess whether we are going to go ahead or reject it. And at that point, the salesperson or the project manager, in this case, can receive the acceptance or rejection notification. And that's because both systems are connected when it comes to recognizing opportunity statuses. So in Salesforce on this side, they're called opportunity statuses. On Plunet, they're called quote status. So if the project manager receives that quotation file, if they trigger that to rejected, it's going to update Salesforce as closed lost and send a notification email to the salesperson, so they know the situation. Vice versa, if it was accepted and the salesperson received it, I can change it to closed won. It's going to accept the quote. The project manager knows it's going ahead. They'll get an email. The project manager can now engage and start the project and take it to order management status. So we've managed to get all the way to project go live, and there's been no interaction with salespeople within Plunet. And that essentially allows, if we go back to the beginning of those licensing costs, seats are always free for the critical users, and those critical users being project managers. So this was early days. We started working with Plunet back in 2015. We did this just with myself as a finance guy, and we had no technology function at all. We actually worked with a singular technology consultant, and that helped it get to the end of the line. So essentially, what I'm kind of getting at is you don't need a large team to get to even this level. This is kind of where I left it before Josh Branton, who joined the company late last year. I got it there myself. So all you need to be able to do is critically think about what you need to have achieved. Think about the vision of what automation looks like to you. You don't need to have to be drawing technical maps. And then just make sure you work with the right competent person to get it done and go external. So it sometimes kind of scares you when you see these RWS of the world with large technology teams. We talk about automation. It's kind of a big thing to do. But it really isn't. I think the biggest resource you need is time. As Dan said, it's all about that wonder of what can I do, a lack of fear of making something go wrong. Work within a sandbox environment if you can, so that you can test the waters and keep pushing things back and forth. But ultimately, I finish off with just things to watch for. And as with all out-of-the-box technologies, there are limitations. I'm sure everybody who's worked with the API understands that it's not going to do everything you want it to do. But I genuinely think if you think outside the box a little bit, you can make it happen. As I said, I don't have that education or experience in technology, so don't fear about getting it started. If you don't feel you've got the competency, though, I think competency for me looks like methodical, logical thinkers. But if you don't have it, like, never fear about delegating, because somebody in your team who's not a technologist might have the skill to do it. So definitely delegate down. You will need a lot of time to invest. I kind of found that eventually it was draining me of time, and I couldn't dedicate my time to supporting the sales team and supporting the project management team. So eventually I had to bring people in to get that done. But it's possible to a certain level to do it by yourself. And finally, once you've got that created system, and this is not something I planned for because I don't have a technology background, there's a lot of maintenance post-release. Plunet 9 comes out, and all of a sudden things change, and you need to recode it. Salesforce updates something that needs some changes to do to it. And if you work with a consultant, that consultant might not be available anymore. So you've just got to be careful that make sure it's well documented. This was an early lesson from me. I lost my developer. He wasn't contactable anymore. I went to somebody else, and they went, "Where's your documentation?" And I was like, "There is none." And that was it. So you had to start again. It costs a lot more money. So document your information. Don't be scared. Get involved and use a support network. It was great to meet the technologist that Dan referenced tonight. Like, there are people out there who can help. So utilize that. I don't know why this was on auto skip, but has anybody got any questions?
Crystal, yeah.